This is the third part of what we've been studying, which is how can a believer have that peace inside that Yeshua has promised to us.
Anima pele so arikyar ko na ma da abechena na hi ma jamre na ha da ta pe ma te ka chu be na go ha da pe ku na pe pe ni che me te no ha sana ai so ma thun ma so thưa ko.
Remember the things that we've talked about so far. First of all, we have to be committed to always do the right thing.
Và be to mani go ha ra la te che na ma da pe ngi na ma a she ke ba te fo te be go ha da pe ngi na ma pe be me chu shi mo hu da to re da kya na ko.
We need to say, whatever happens, I will do right. I will do the right thing.
Ni da pe ngi na pe kha be no mai te be ba na ke na ma ve me hu da ma re na ba da to na ba.
Because we don't want any problem between us and God.
Me de ma pe si me chu da re da kya me de ma sana da pe si me su sa pe ngi na da chom re na pe asana da o pe o chu lu na go asana pe o phu lu na asana pe me su pe si me su sa to.
So we're talking about when big troubles come
Nda
and how to have peace.
ba ar pho khen ma pe heda ma te mi su sa ra du na te hin go he ba na khen ma te mi su sa du ba te be do pe ngi na ma sana pe ras plo go na ma mo re ga du ko sana te ka chu be o go di go.
So number 2, we want to make sure when that trouble comes that we put ourselves in God's hands.
Do van na che na ma ba te mi su sa he a pe kha be na te mi su sa ko ne he sana a yen ne pe ngi ma na ba na khen ma be to mani na da pe ngi ma lo pli pe kha be te pe de lo ke da chum re tu khu go.
And then we learned in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. We learned that we need to make our requests in prayer to God.
Ma to da pe singi na pe pa da ma Philippi ma du na ma le to ne ma phu na ma cha na khu na go sana da ba pe te kui chop be the ma chum re na go.
And then He will give us that peace.
Ni be kui shu de chum re da pe lu ma ite te ka ju be ne ma da be se shu chum re no ha da le di pe pa.
Now, it's nice when we are not having troubles. That's nice.
Ni da pe ngi na ha mo le ma da ma pe mi su sao to no go ha.
But to really experience God's comfort, there must be trouble.
Mana da pe ngi na ma ke ra ne pe si o mo re da pe si plo ko sana da ite pe si ma da chum re da pe ma ta ka chu be ne ma sana da pe kha be re le da ma te mi su sa na ko.
When we have a big trouble and we do what's right and we put ourselves in God's hands,
Me na da pe ngi na ha pe me shu ma hu da a ta re tho pa na che ta che na ma pe de lo pli pe te me si lo pli pe chu pre da chum re ku nei ma.
and we ask God to help,
Da ba so che na ba pe ku chu be the chum re da a lo mi chop pe.
that is when we experience God's comfort.
Ba pe me tho ana so che ne ma ba na khe na ma da ite chum re da ta pe ma da mo re da ite asana amore pe si plongi ko.
That's what we want to talk about this morning. Why do these troubles come?
Ni me na ha atana na ma pe si he da re kya ma me te a te mi su sa si ma pe na si na he da pe o khale mi te.
Turn to right here, 2 Corinthians chapter 1.
2 Corinthians
2 Corinthians chapter 1.
kare tu ni ba ta ban.
And here, Kupalu talks about some of the big troubles that he has gone through.
Bar phone ma ku palu no go a he ma da re kya ma da engi no ha khabe no chu ma da te mi su sa sia du si no go.
And because he has gone through these troubles, he has experienced God's comfort.
Mi me te ma ku palu no ha khabe no ma te mi su sa du no ha da engi no ha a khabe no tho ke no ha asana da engi no ha amore si ma chum da te asana khabe no ma da chum da talu ma amore ka se no ku.
And having experienced this, he teaches these Corinthian believers about what he went through.
Ni mi te ma a khabe no tho da chum da lu ma more le no he me no ha ku palu no ha ai sana ai so hangi se da ma kritu krip ku si pu the no go.
Now, this is very important. Kupalu gives a surprising reason why our troubles come.
Kada ku palu ma ai sho pe ma na mi te sana mi te ma ite ma te mi su sana ha header pe o khale mi te khabe no mi te sana ha sana ai sho no ha ma da khokli na da ma pe ni no go.
He gives a reason that it may surprise us.
Ni ma ai sho pe no ha sana da pe ni na ma pe a o cha ki sana pe ni no pe ni tu bi no go to go.
Let's play a couple of verses here. Let's see. Would you play verse 3, 4, 5, and 6?
To set a rolu, baby, I tell you, Shukria, Petomria, Ibo, Emma, Peda, says a wood to pray, Rolo, temi, Jude Hinema, our Delu, Uhiapre, Be Pemiachi, Shita Bena, De Piate Selo, Blitty Akenu, Emi Mumi Jupe, De Emi Mumi Jupe, Puye Akuaki. Emi mumi chube peke urede, amiachi shite bena, te piate se pumi putze de he. Temi mumi chude, emi mumi chu uyete hinema. Asia prena chomria me mumi chupe nute he pre. De kriya kuwa kiro, pekia be enya chote chite chimanaro. De yishu kriya kuwa kiro, chomria me mumi chu ekunya chope. Siabu sikuni beteme mumijuna setu prete tubre anyinu. Tomria no kyabe bete piate sepu yinu bre. Ro siabu sikuni beku teme mumiju anyinu. Tomria me mumiju hope. Bete me mumiju si yinu. Adi tucha hosi te kyase plotusia hona be kyabe tu honu te he ho.
That was chapter 6, right? Verse 6.
Right.
Okay.
Kupalu went through terrible troubles in his service, in his ministry.
Nila ku palu no ha ma imete ite hey sana achot propos ami ma chamre te min go ha iswa ke yesili se si chu go si no ha da engi no ona khabe no inene da te misu sa du si go.
How bad was it? He tells us how bad sometimes it got in verse 8.
Ni no da ai show da ma phu no ba shi no go ha da engi na ma asana achan ne ba te ma te misu sa na ma achan ne ba te du ba te no ha show pe ba no phu go.
Would you play verse 8?
We see. Verses it design you picusina. Be pe ashake duku akenu. Be cabenia tote chite he ariakia. Te chite be cabe inu. Achia chite lose luto akuaki. Be si to hopako petani topunu. Rope diana.
He mentions a time here where he thought he and the workers with him were going to be killed.
นี่ว่าพอนมาให้โชเปมาเดเอาเดอันนี้เนาะเขาโอตคือมานะคุบจีสีเตหีเนาะฮะไอ้เจ้าน่ะอัตมิสุสารกูเนาะฮะเจ้าน่ะอัตนี้นะเอซินาเซอร์จะปะจะก็
But he tells the Corinthians, that is the people that he's writing to, he tells the Corinthians why these troubles came to him.
นี่คุณเนี่ยนะมาว่าเฮลอลปลีดซีนะมาอาสูเฮมาลิบาเดมาก็เลยตู้คริฟูสีเตหีนะก็เฮนะว่าไอ้โชลุนะเมเตเดเองกิสเองเนาะฮะคาบินามาอิเตตมิสุสารอาจจะจึงเนี่ยเมเตนะ
Now we can think of several reasons why, but I want to mention 2 reasons from this passage.
นี่เดเมเตคาบินาเมเตเฮเนี่ยมาสนะเอาอินเนี่ยก็เฮมานะสนะหัวซีไอซีโชว์แบบว่าเนื้อจืดมาเดเมเตคาบินาก็ให้โชว์เบอร์ลิเซบอตฟูกูว่า
Now, Kupalu is writing to the Corinthians, and he says, he gives a reason for his troubles, which is surprising.
นี่คุณเนี่ยนะมาคุปโลเนาะฮะราเฮลีนี่บาซีซูเฮเดมากริตูผู้ซีเตหินก็นะบาซีโชลุนะมิเมเตเดเองนี่เนาะฮะคาบิโนมาเตมิสุซาเมเตนก็
In verse 6, he says that the reason I have gone through these troubles is for you.
นี่มาคุปโลเนาะก็เฮเดไอโชเบอร์มาพูดนะว่าชอบนะเฮเฮนะมามิเมเตคุปโลเนาะฮะคาบิโนเดเตมิสุซาเมเตเนี่ยมาเดมาอเมเปคาบิโนมาเปเอซิงีก็
Let me explain. Kupalu is saying that he is having the troubles and he's feeling the comfort of God and the peace of God.
มาคุณเนี่ยนะมาคุปโลนะเฮเตเนี่ยมาเฮนะเดอคาเบนอตมิสุซานะบ่บ่เตเบก็เฮเบนะเคนะมาเอเตเตนะมาโอเดอมาเตโมเรกเซนะตะกู
And this is happening so that he, Kupalu, can bring them comfort.
มีอันนี้มีนะฮะมีเมเตคุปโลนะฮะอันซะนะเดอคาเบนอนเนี่ยเดมิสุซาจักจิงนะเตฮิเมเตตัวบ่าเดคาบิโนบัตเตเบก็เฮเดจมเรนฮะเมมูเรก็เซอันนี้มินฮะคาบิโนลอปลิฮุกลอเมเตเฮเนมาสนะเดอาซีจัวเตซูเฮก็มาเดเตมีมูเรก็เซนะเดมาคริตุผู้อุนผู้กูก็
One of the reasons we go through troubles is so that we, after we have been comforted, we know how to bring comfort to other believers.
นี่นะเป็นงี้นะฮะเส้นนั้นเป็นงี้นะแม่ก็เห็นได้เป็นงี้นะมาเส้นนั้นเป็นเตมิสุสาวตะจือว่าเตมิสุสาวโทนเนี่ยมาเส้นนั้นเป็นมีแรกก็เส้นเป็นงี้สินะมาเส้นนั้นเอาหมูแรกก็เส้นก็เห็นมีนะมีเตไปคาเบนอมมีเตเนี่ยมาเส้นนั้นอาศัยมีอุนนี่ไปมาเด้อฉันหนูประมาณไปมีจอดเช็คก็กี่สิเด้อคาเบนอก็มาเตมิสุสาวเส้นนั้นไปคาเบนอมกูก็
Let's say, for instance, that one of us needed their appendix out.
นี่อุปมาก็เห็นเส้นนั้นคุณเปล่าว่าเส้นนั้นเปล่าตะเพลก็เห็นมาเด้อเป็นลูกพิจารณานี่ดิ appendix ราตันเนี่ยราตันเนี่ยก็ปราตันเนี่ย
I lost my appendix when I was maybe 10 years old. They took them out.
นี่เด้อสังเกตว่าพิจารณาเด้อเอาหน้าไว้ป่ะหน้าเชิญมันก็
And maybe some of you have had your appendix taken out.
I don't think so.
But what if the doctor told you that, you know what, Ime, you need your appendix out? And Ime, you might be very fearful.
นี่อุปมาก็เห็นเส้นนั้นดอกอีเมลฮะมาแต่กุศลอะไรชมมาดอกอีเมลก็เห็นนะในวิชาที่เกมาในพระตันเนี่ยนี่นะมาบันนักเขียนฮะมีเมื่ออุสิเงี้ยเลยแต่เจอตัวนั้นเห็นไหมนะฮะอุสิเช็คกันเนี่ยเป็นยังไงอันนี้ก็
Because maybe you've never had an operation.
นี่มีเมื่อสิเช็คเนี่ยมีเมื่อเนี่ยมาเส้นนั้นเดินหนึ่งเนี่ยมาเส้นนั้นเนี่ยแค่นั้นเลยเนี่ยนี่แต่แค่ตัว
And you talk to Pome talks to you, and Pome says, oh, don't worry, Ime. it's not that bad.
Ni mena mi de ni si she no ha ne he ibishu na no phu me ko me de ma de no phu me no ha pya thi no tho a kwen tho ni he me no ai shu sen ne ko a lu mi si she me a sa no ai shu no ko sa na a cha sen na de ne tin ni na to.
And Pome says, when they operate, you're asleep anyways.
Ban do phu me ai shu ne na ba me pya thi ne te a me kwen ni na ban na kin ma sa na ne mo to pa ke ko.
And Pome says, I prayed to God and I trusted Him and I felt God's comfort.
No da no phu me no ha na to ba me ku the chu be chum re to ba chum re no ha da ta da kleve ma da tem umu re na hin ba sa na da ba ngi no ha ve lu si she na mo to ve umu re ke se.
And before your surgery, you will pray and you will feel God's comfort.
Ni me no ha ba ma ne me kwen ni le to kin ko ba ne me kwen a kin no ha sa na da ne ku the chu be chum re na ba chum re no ha da ke se ne hu da lim ni si she to ngi no sa na amu re ke se ne si blok ko.
When we are going through a really bad trouble, it is difficult to remember something.
Ni da pingi no ha ke da ne ma pe kha be no ma te mi su sa a chan ne ko ne ma to pho da ke ma pe sho to pa ti ti da ko ko.
It's difficult to remember that the reason for the trouble is that we will have something to teach other believers.
Ni da pingi na o na pe kha be no ma te mi su sa nei ma sa na pe sho to pa ti ti ko he na da mi me te pe kha be no me te he ne ma sa na da pe a sa na da a si noi chu o ni ke pe sha nu ba ma pe mi chot che ke ke he ni shan da bing ye pa ti ko.
If we do the right things and if we put ourselves in God's hands, we feel God's comfort.
Me no ha sa na me na da pingi na o pe mi shu shu ma da to re to ba te pe de lo pli pe te mi sa si be lo pli pe da chom re ku tu ku ne ma na pingi ne ma sa na o shu shu ma da te mo re te hi ba ka.
And if we pray and if we trust God in the trouble, then we will experience that wonderful comfort from God.
Ni me na ha ba na ke o na pe ku te chop be chom re to pa ma ite pe ji ma da chom re mi chwa di pe pa ada ka sa di pe do da to re na pa pe ni pe ji jo sha ba na ne ma sa na da pe ngi ne ma ite chom re da ta pe ma da te mo re na ko ko.
And then we have something that we can share and bring comfort to our brothers and sisters.
Mina da pe kha be na tho lo play na ar ko ne ma sa na da pe ngi no ha au tu chu ma kina pe metha te pe ko so be si na kha be no sa na pe na ko ne ma sa na pe mi cho che ga de si pa ba.
Remember Yeshua. We want to be like him.
Na pe be to ma ni ma Yeshu ko ha sa na pe ma pe si em mi sa na da ma be se Yeshu ko.
When Yeshua was going through the worst troubles, when he was going to his death,
Ni da ma be se Yeshu no ha kha be no ma mi su sa cha lut ko ma da ma ide ba me sa o pu me sa ke na no thu ko.
inside he had peace and comfort.
Da a me pu da sa pa te ma da be se Yeshu ni no ha da a zi blok no ko sa na Yeshu ma da amore to ba a te ma Yeshu ma da ta ka chu ko be o na ko ko.
Remember that he told us about the peace he would give the very hours before he was put to death.
Ni to ba to ma ni ma da ba ite au pu me sa na o ba ta nai na he ba na ke no ha Yeshu na Yeshu pe ko sa na da sa na da pe pe Yeshu ma da ta ka chu ko be na pa.
And when he was carrying his cross, even then, he had compassion on some that felt so bad for him.
Ma ba ite Yeshu me hi da. Ya ni ma te le thu ha ba na ke ma asana da kiyama huda asiyo ne pe Yesu nge na ma bana ken ma Yesu no ha ami mo lo please na da asiyo ga asisi ga
When he was on the cross, he thought of his mother, Mumari.
da Yesu awda ma te thulo no go bana ken ma Yesu na tani atani beto na amu ma mo mari ga
He knew she would be needing help, and so he asked Johann to take care of her.
ni mi te ma Yesu no asingi na da mo na ma au tu ke ne ma sana alu ye mo ha mi chalu pa asingi ne me no ha ano ma ku John another Johann you say Johann na da alu mi chwa na amu ba na ga
And then he spoke to the thief on the cross. He had compassion on the thief next to him.
to da te Yesu na onda hi tu lu na ma ai be chu ni ma pre te ho pu no pre no go he na ma sana ai be chu lu na sana asi yo lu nge ga
So Yeshua was showing us that even when we have the worst troubles, we can have peace inside.
ni mina bana ke na ma Yesu na a do me pe go he sana da na pe na pe te mi su sa du o te be go he bana ba te ke te be bana ke na ma pe ite da pe ku da pe si plo ku na ma te ka chu ko be na ma o chi che to ma sana da te mo re na ma o ni ga ba ga
You know, there's one more thing.
au pa tu
When we go through troubles, that gives us a heart for others that are going through troubles.
a heart
A compassion, in other words.
okay
We understand and we feel bad for them.
ni mina ha da pe ngi na ha da pe kabino tho te mi su sa chu ne ma sana bana ke na ma ami tho the pe te chu ma sana da pe si plo ku no ha ke ne pe me thak ye te pre ate no ha kabino ga te ma da te mi su sa ne ma sana da pe ngi na ma sana pe si plo che pe si ngi ja hun ko ka sana mi te he ne ma pe si ngi na da ngi na cha ba tin ko
If we never go through troubles, then we do not really understand and we do not really feel compassion for others that are going through troubles.
ni mina da pe ngi na ke na pe kabino te mi su sa na ho tu to pe kabino to he ne ma sana da pe singe che to ko da singi da ke si kabino na ma sana da pe si plo che sana da pe singe ga pe singe to ko da singe na ma cha ba tin pe singe che to ko
So that's another reason why we go through troubles.
ni ma at je na ma da na ma me te pe kabino da te mi su sa me tin ko
We may think sometimes, I feel bad for them, I'd like to help, but what can I do?
ni to pora ke na ma me tha ke de pre na ma sana da a ma si yon ne ngi ma to sana ma na da pe ngi na ma mi chwa che ka si na mi te
I've mentioned this before, but it's so important.
ma sra no ai sho tho pe ai sho no tho ka pe thu ga ma na asana a pe bi da dunia tu chu ga
Just being with someone, just being there, even without saying anything, is a real comfort.
ni da sra ai sho tho pe na ma he na da pe ngi na ma pe lo mi chwa to na a lo na to ga mi te ma sana pe o phu jo e si na ma ba na ma asana da a mi mo re ga de da pe ma e si mi ha ba na ga
Do you remember we talked once about people that have a panic attack where they are scared and cannot and have a hard time breathing?
ma da si to ma pa ve he na ma sa ai sho pe ga sana da u ma pe met pe o phu ma da ki ma hu da ite da e si no ha si shene te chu me da sana a si che to tu te hin ga
One of the things that is so helpful and so effective for the person who has that fear
to ma da e si ngi na ha ko ha ma da e si ngi ma ki ma hu da we he the panic attack ma e si na se asana si block kya no ha catch can do ne no ha sana asana a mes test so jo no ko no ko
lo yo ga hi ma to
nên mà tổ
thể soi cho luôn mà thật soi
anh mà sẽ chết trong tổ tung rồi mình mà đỡ sinh nhiên mà à rồi là sinh nhiên mà tiền nữa
Yeah, it's when you get a fear, and it makes you breathe hard, and you feel like you.
à sẽ chết trong tổ tung
Does anyone remember the one thing I mentioned once that is so helpful for a person having a panic attack? Anybody remember?
si to ma ve na da cái này si mét thở kia hồi đó xin mà đỡ sinh nhiên mà à rồi là mà si mét chọt chế mét tiền nữa à sao ít số thôi nè si to ma ve xin đến nè
One of the very effective, one of the very helpful things is just is a nurse being nearby the person.
นี่เด้อสิ่งนี้นะเด้อเริ่มมาเตเนี่ยมาเด้อมา nurse มึงก็ให้มันแต่คือสนามหมอสิเอาผือลุงนะแม่ก็สนักขานะลุตัวเอาผือจะลุงนะแม่ก็
Now you say, oh, you mean a nurse because they're doing something? No.
อ่ะเฮ็ดนะมาเฮ็ดแต่คือสนามนะมาแต่คือสนามหมอเฮ็ดนะมานี่เนี่ยนะมาสนะเป็นนี่นะเอาแต่คือสนามหมอไม่เตเนี่ยมาเด้อแต่คือสนามหมอนะมีจอดเจเอปะเป็นนี่นกละมันนะนี่เนี่ยมาหุ่นกละมันตัว
No, just because the person knows that the nurse is nearby is a great help and comfort to them.
มันน่าเด้ออีเตเด้อสิ่งนี้นะก็ให้บ่น่ะคิดนะคิดนะสิ่งนี้นะเด้อเอามาเอาอีเตมาแต่คือสนามหมอผือเอาผือไว้หุ่นกละสิมาสิ่งนี้บ้านนะมันมาเด้ออย่างนี้นะฮะสนะเด้อเอาหมูแรกเด้ออันนี้ก็
Well, I'm going to stop right here.